Good evening. This is Maestro Cortello with a Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite modcast. Today we have a 2v2 on Desert Showdown. I actually love this map. And our first player today is PhatE, playing as the Orc Warboss, this tanky melee hero who is kitted out pretty crazily in the Elite mod. Tanky melee hero can disrupt, he can counter melee units, and also just tie things up and be very, very scary, especially with his buffs, Use Your Choppas and Arid Boys. His teammate is Fear, playing as the tunneling Ravener Alpha. The Ravener Alpha starts off as a ranged hero, but he can now definitely be a potent melee hero as well. But one of his big abilities is just his ability to make lots and lots of tunnels, basically like webway gates, except they're free but a little more easily destroyed. Their opponents, we're starting off with Commissar Sebastian Yarrick, playing as the Commissar. Maybe we'll even see him get a Power Claw in this game so that he can really be like Commissar Sebastian Yarrick. The Commissar is a slightly tanky melee hero. He does get a free energy shield, but it is the worst energy shield in the game. And he is just going to be really beastly, just chasing down orcs with his sword. He can support his units by shooting them in the head, which makes them fight quite a bit harder. And then finally, we have DJ Raffa as the Techmarine, a ranged Space Marine hero. Can get an axe later on, though, and from what I read, Techmarines usually use axes instead rather than bolters or ranged weapons. But he can support vehicles very well, possibly better than any other hero in the game. He has a gun for every occasion, and he can also be really, really good in team games, 2v2 and 3v3, if you use a relay beacon and a turret. Ooh, and there he goes down. So we have heroes going down on both sides. The Warboss goes down, and the Techmarine goes down. Now we have some shooter boys that have not yet been upgraded to have big shooters. I wonder if it's still just that early in the game, or if PhatE is waiting on something. It seems like he's, I don't know, certainly getting bled quite a bit, although certainly double Sentinels is going to be very, very powerful against shooter boys that do not yet have their big shooters. Although the big shooters are going to put a lot of pressure on these Sentinels once they do come up. Although at the same time, I think PhatE is going to have trouble keeping those shooter boy models alive, and he might lose them very quickly. So it could be a dangerous game right here. We could see PhatE bleeding a lot from his shooter boys. Yarrick possibly losing a Sentinel. Looks like Yarrick goes for the revive on his teammate. Techmarine is back on his feet, and the Commissar Lord is retreating out of there as well. Most likely, Techmarine is retreating as well, and we just don't see the icon for some reason. But these are the Ravener tunnels, which will be giving the blue team a lot of mobility, especially if Fear decides to give PhatE a few tunnels that he can use, although he cannot put the Warboss inside those tunnels. In fact, if the Warboss tries to walk into those tunnels, he will actually end up destroying them, which will actually be very counterproductive. So heroes back on their feet for all players. And Tyranid's now probably going to get a bit of a gen bash over here, especially with these Slugger Boys supporting. And interestingly, he's choosing to continue to bash with some of his units, while some of the others choose to engage. And that actually scares the scouts off. Imperial Guardsmen, ooh, and here we go with the Sentinel nearly dead. Probably, again, a lot of pressure coming out of those double big shooters because of how incredibly powerful a build that is. Although I'm wrong. Oh, wait, no, I think I'm right. Yeah, double big shooters. Going to put a lot of pressure on the Sentinels, and one of them almost dies. And this is a very interesting play. We see that Yarrick chooses to make his first use of red is a repair bunker. And part of the reason he chose to do that is he went for a double Sentinel build, which can be very, very powerful, but he only has one Guardsman squad. So his ability to repair those two Sentinels is relatively limited, which is one of the reasons he got this repair bunker. And since the Sentinels are so fast, they can very quickly go back to base, heal up, and then get back out on the field. Still not quite as... doesn't give you quite as much field presence as simply having a Guardsman squad for each Sentinel, or having two Guardsman squads for one Sentinel. But this gives Yarrick the flexibility to not get two Guardsmen and then to get a different squad instead. So we see that he's gone for a heavy weapon team, which gives him a whole other dimension to his play rather than simply getting another Guardsman. There we see the Shooter Boy. One of the Shooter Boys actually did go down, which is part of what can be very tricky about these double Sentinel builds, especially if these Orc squads get very low on health. The Sentinels can actually chase them down. They can actually chase down those lone models, and although they don't do that much damage, they are very, very good at chasing because they are so fast. Over here, it looks like something's in the building. It doesn't even say what. Some kind of, maybe the Techmarine is in there or something. Yeah, Techmarine is in the building. It was a little difficult to see there. He was in the building. Raffa himself going for a fairly short build, but he does have a scout squad that already has a sergeant as well as a shotgun upgrade. But he's just did not go for the second scout, and he's instead gone straight into assault marines, which is actually, I think, probably and the Techmarine goes down again, which is actually probably fairly common in team games, since you don't really need a second scout for the map control. Although it can still definitely be very, very useful to have that second scout for, say, the extra shotgun support. Mostly the extra shotgun support, I think, if you have to deal with a lot of melee. Although, I'd say right now, the red team and Raffa does not have to deal with a whole lot of melee. PhatE was going for... PhatE has gone for a bit more of a shooty build with his orcs, and so has Fear. Fear, of course, still has the Hormigaunt and the Warrior Brood, so there definitely is some melee presence, but he has the Termagants, and then the Ravener Alpha starts off as a ranged hero. But, Fear actually being very, very oppressive right now, did choose to get a Shooter knob on his Shooter Boys. Now, having that Shooter knob isn't going to stop those Shooter Boys from bleeding horribly, but it does increase their survivability a lot. Just if those Shooter Boys, the individual boys, get killed really quickly, that knob is still really, really tough, and you probably won't as easily... Excuse me. You won't nearly as easily lose that, basically, you just won't nearly as easily lose the Shooter Boy squad if you have the knob. And it does, of course, give you extra range fire on top of a squad that is already extremely, extremely powerful as a ranged unit. As it is, I think these Slugger Boys might be slightly overextending. At some point, Ard Boys is going to wear off, and that could have been a very dangerous situation if Ard Boys had worn off very early in that retreat, or even before the retreat. Over here we have Assault Marines taking on the Warrior Brood, and they appear to be winning. And that's a fight I'm not even sure who necessarily has the advantage in that fight. Although actually, Warrior Brood in their vanilla form definitely would be losing that fight, having less health, as well as, I believe, doing less damage. And we also saw the Assault Marines getting the knockback. Ooh! Hormigaunt's come very close to dying. And this looks like a winning engagement for Raffa. Yeah, those Termagants really need to get out of there. And the Generator Bash. I don't even know how much there was in terms of a power farm, but certainly this node is not going to last. Meanwhile, these double Sentinels still being very, very nice. You know, Yarrick got that heavy weapon team. I feel like I haven't even seen a whole lot out of it. Right now, he may just be positioning it here to really protect that power farm. Since it seems like both teams have been having trouble keeping their side power farms alive. Like this one's dead. This one has been bashed, although we have new generators going down, and they've mostly been holding on to their middle farms, which is interesting because usually that's the more contested one. But at the same time, it can be harder to get over there. I'd say actually probably the middle power farms are a bit safer. It's a bit harder to get over there for both players. More of a commitment, and most of the fighting tends to congregate in the middle, so usually a lot of fighting takes place there, so it's a little bit more easily defended. Whereas I think these side power farms, it's more likely that players will just kind of leave those side power farms undefended while they're fighting in the middle. Meanwhile, these Slugger Boys actually managed to get around this firing arc, but they are being chased down and stomped by Sentinels. Commissar is in here as well. No upgrades on this Commissar, and I'd be a little worried for him, as well as definitely worried for the Sentinel. I think Stomp is on cooldown, so I think this Sentinel is cutting it very, very close. But yeah, we need... Oh, and it still goes down. I think just got caught up on some of the cover right here. So one Sentinel goes down, and not even really to shoot-aboard fire. That was almost like from melee damage, but I think Yarrick kept that Sentinel in there a little too long after it had already stomped. And meanwhile, there is a bug in the current version, or the current beta of the mod, where the Sentinel does not stun. It is a bug. It was not intended, but the Sentinel does not stun. So it is not as effective as it would usually be, and that's definitely not good for Imperial Guard. But Yarrick, a very dedicated Imperial Guard player. I actually do feel like Imperial Guard play has gone down a bit in the most recent beta, perhaps because of that. But Yarrick, one of the best Imperial Guard players around, so he's still rocking the Guard, and it is his main race. Assault Marines jumping right into a big blob, and they get the disruption, and I think they very smartly get out of there, get the disruption, stall out a bit, so that they can retreat somewhat safely. But we do have the Warrior Brood now upgraded with Adrenal Glands, and I think the let's see, the Venom Brood as well also upgraded with the Range Synapse. Meanwhile, back over here, we now have Stick Bombers out for and those Stick Bombers hitting those Stormtroopers. Stick Bombers for PhatE, a artillery unit for the Orcs. And these Stick Bombs, they have really, really long range. I think there was a time when Stick Bombs were not considered good, and I'm not even sure why. Maybe some things have changed about them. I know that they have increased their melee damage in Elite for whatever that's worth, but I feel like the actual bombardment ability is pretty good for them. Especially, it is good as in an area of effect, long range. Basically artillery. It functions well as artillery. Long range, disruption, and damage, as well as stun. Can be particularly good against the Guard because they are, of course, one of, if not the race that is most vulnerable to that kind of disruption and area of effect damage. And these Stick Bombs just keep throwing. They do, of course, have access to a stun bomb as well as explosive stick bombs. The stun bombs do move quite a bit slower. So Fear and PhatE now kind of doubling Yarrick, I think. So Raffa needs to come on over. Raffa has gone for a plasma cannon, which I always love to see. Plasma cannons always have a very wonderful effect, and these Assault Marines need to be very, very careful up against these Slugger Boys. The Assault Marines down to 2 out of 3 models. They might just get wiped here, and I think they will. Assault Marines go down for Raffa. I think just keeping those Assault Marines in too long against these use your chopper Slugger Boys, and this Slugger Boy just left with the one knob. Slugger knob might not even survive. Oh, but he has Ard Boys on him, so I think he will even survive a grenade blast. Oh, very close, and he actually does take out the Slugger Boy. So at least Raffa managed to get that trade. I feel like the Assault Marines might be the bigger loss, even though Slugger Boys, when you have invested in them with that Slugger knob, and they even had the burners as well. So there were definitely some investment in the Slugger Boys. Although I still feel that for what the Assault Marines do, Raffa took the bigger loss. It's just nice that he was able to make it so that he at least returned the loss somewhat. Stick bombs right here. Only Stormtroopers. Stormtroopers have upgraded to the Assault Kit, so it is interesting that Yarrick committed to that Assault Kit. And of course, with the Stormtroopers, you can actually choose to not upgrade to the Assault Kit if you just want to wait around and see if you eventually need to get the Anti-Armor Kit. And oh man, the Plasma Cannon goes down. Oh my god! Oh man, I wish I had caught that a little better, but those were some airdrop mines from Yarrick, and he combined that with the Manticore Strike. And the Manticore can set off the mines even if they are being detected, which is definitely a special trick that the Commissar has that the other Imperial Guard heroes don't. And of course, those mines are quite a bit less effective when your opponent has a detector, because as long as they have a detector, they don't even need to worry about. They can just walk right over the mines without even setting them off, unless you set them off yourself, which is, again, what Yarrick did with the Manticore. You can also do it with the Sentinel Missile Launcher, as well as really any kind of area of effect ability. And oh man, this Yarrick hitting back hard with that Manticore right now, and the blue team needs it. because, or rather, the red team needs it because the blue team has overall been doing a bit better, I think. And Yarrick, I mean, not Yarrick, well, yeah, Yarrick did suffer his 1 sentinel loss, but I think more importantly, Raffa has been struggling a little bit. Certainly losing those Assault Marines was a big blow, as well as losing the Plasma Cannon Devastator, and he already got a new squad of Assault Marines. And this is the, I believe, the Legion of the Damned color scheme for these guys. And oh my god, they really look really, really awesome. It looks like a squad full of chaplains. So I was trying to say, those stormtroopers, you can leave them in their default form, and they can still be very, very effective if you don't yet want to commit to the assault kit. And then you can wait around, see if your opponent gets a vehicle, and then you can commit to the anti-armor kit if you need that. But the assault kit is very nice, not just for the damage increase, but I think more importantly, the range increase you get on these stormtroopers. It actually increases their range, so they have really, really ridiculous range. And although Yarrick is playing as the Commissar right now, but it can be really, really amazing if you combine it with the any of the Lord General's buffing weapon war gears, whether it's the sniper rifle or the melta-guns. I think the Commissar, yeah, the Commissar needs to get out of there. Meanwhile, we have stick bombs thrown over the wall. Might just wipe those scouts? No. That was a nice toss, though. Kind of calling that retreat. Here we go with another Manticore strike, and this game is crazy. I think Yarrick maybe did a little friendly fire with that Manticore. It can sometimes be a little difficult to coordinate. Got to be a little careful with your Manticore strikes. But yeah, I mean, Yarrick is actually right now, he's mostly using this heavy weapon team to preserve his power farm, it seems. Because PhatE will most likely be sending the Slugger Boys alone to try to bash the power farm. And wow, he actually just toughs out those stick bombs. Because he has the refractor field, he can actually just tank the damage while not getting disrupted with the refractor field on that heavy weapon team, although still vulnerable to the stun bombs. There goes another Manticore strike on this blob. Oh. And Fear's getting hit very, very hard. Of course, I mean, the Manticore is a very, very powerful unit, and I think it can be especially powerful against a lot of those squishier squads, Shooter Boys, Termagants. In particular, it's extremely, extremely good against heretics. It is absolutely devastating against heretics. And stick bombs, fairly, ultimately, mostly dodged. Looks like still 2 guardsmen died. And there we go with a Foot of Gork. PhatE using the Foot of Gork. He apparently really, really likes to use the Foot of Gork. And it is, I mean, there's actually a game we played where he was using it quite a bit against me, too. Very good effect. And it is an interesting ability. It's kind of like a mini nuke that you get as an ability on the Weird Boy. If you notice, the Weird Boy has 1,000 energy, and the Foot of Gork ability actually costs 500. So it can just be difficult to get the energy for that. You can, of course, restore energy on the Weird Boy by using Wah on other Orc squads that are near him. And that Foot of Gork can also be tough because it, you can kind of just get out of the way, but it also just denies that area. And oh my god, Raffa just not even paying attention right here, or just dropping his micro. And from the massive amount of range fire from Fear, he just loses his stern guards just like that. I mean, if we look at this range blob right here, we have double Termagants, we have Devour Raveners, we have the Ravener Alpha with the Corrosive Devourer himself, and we have these Venom Broods with the range Synapse, giving them even more damage. Weird Boy gonna go down. Just one more hit. Oh, so we're not gonna see any more Foot of Gork out of PhatE. Oh, that's really tough. So it looks like Yarrick also finally lost his other Sentinel. Meanwhile, this can be a very difficult ranged force to deal with that Fear has made here. I mean, he definitely went for a very shooty build or a spiny build or whatever those things are that the Tyranids actually shoot out. This could be really, really bad for the Stormtroopers. I wonder if all this range fire, I mean, at least They do get that range damage resistance from ranged fire, redundant, when you're retreating, but that is such a huge amount of range fire. It is really, really ridiculous, and although Raffa already lost a Plasma Cannon Devastator, he might want to consider a new one. I wonder what Raffa is going for. He's definitely been struggling a lot in this game from the massive amount of range fire. He actually opted to get Terminators, which I think is in many ways a good choice. He's kind of fighting. He's trying to fight fire with fire, but he's using a unit that has a very high resistance to a lot of the ranged fire coming out of most of those Tyranid squads, since they do piercing damage, and Terminators do have a 70% damage resistance against piercing damage. But there's still just a massive amount of damage overall coming out of this Tyranid blob, even with that resistance. Although I think especially if these Terminators, if we have a combination of those flares and the Terminator shooting, they can really mop up a lot of Tyranid models. Commissar right here, I think, needs to get out of here. Commissar has been upgraded to the Flat Jacket as well as Stubbornness. Stubbornness healing himself when he has nearby guardsmen around him. And the Flat Jacket allows him to execute enemy units in addition to executing his own units, killing a single model and decreasing their damage. And all these stick bombs. Castricans out for Yarrick. They have been upgraded to have their weapon expertise. Castricans, of course, it has been shown that they are an extremely, extremely powerful ranged unit. Oh my god! And there we go. That Luda boy is gone. New weird boy, but this weird boy has to be very, very careful with both these assault kit stormtroopers as well as these Castricans. And now it's actually PhatE who's getting pinned in his base. But needs to be very, very careful with these stick bombs. And oh my god, the Shooter Boys went down right there. Kind of shows a bit about how powerful these Castricans are. So Yarrick really answering back here. Very good Imperial Guard player. PhatE, of course, probably one of the best, well, definitely one of the best Warboss players around right now. I'm almost tempted to say the best Warboss player around, unless someone like Tex or Toil Ali chooses to contest that just based on them being so good, period. I think the Commissar is pressing his luck a little bit against Slugger Boys that have both Ard Boys and User Choppas active. And now we have a looted tank from PhatE, and PhatE is actually a very big fan of those looted tanks. Very consistently see him choose to get those looted tanks over knobs in Tier 3. And meanwhile, oh man, back over here, I totally missed. Raffa now in a ton of trouble. His Terminator is actually being really, really chased down. And while Yarrick is pinning PhatE in his base, Fear is pinning DJ Raffa in his. These Terminators nearly died right there. They have been upgraded to have the Assault Cannon to increase their range damage even further, but they were still just getting destroyed by this Tyranid range blob. Techmarine is down yet again. At this point, I don't actually know if it's such a great idea to have a melee Techmarine. Oh no, this could be the end of the Assault Marines again. And these are Vanguard veterans, not just any Assault Marines. And again, oh my god. In part that had to do with this Doom of Malentine. Oh, I'm trying to click on it. Doom of Malentine now out for PhatE. Unfortunately, as you can see, and there goes the looted tank. I have a lot of money, 1,100, no 5 range things going on in my tooltips. Unfortunately, that's just inevitably happens from constantly switching back and forth between, or not even constantly, but just switching between Codex Edition and Elite. And sometimes it is too much trouble to switch it. But more airdrop mines. Now, Yarrick does have to be a little careful about... Oh, and that was a Tyranid formation, but it's not doing a whole lot. Yarrick does have to be a little careful about having those airdrop mines and now walking over them himself, because the Weird Boy can actually detonate those mines if he knows where they are. using his basic attack. This weird boy, again, also has the warp head, so he will have the Foot of Gork ability, although I don't think we've seen it since that first time. And look at how quickly these generators are going down. It is, I don't even know if it's really possible for the red team to hold a farm right here. Raffa hurting really, really badly. He does have these Terminators, which can be very, very effective, but they still, I mean, Raffa is just overwhelmed because there are just so many things out on the field. Just the blue team just has such a bigger army, and they need to. I mean, I don't even know what they should do. I mean, the Manticore is one thing, and I mean that Manticore forces a retreat off just from that entire army. Yeah, the Terminators can stay in here. They're actually going to take out the Weird Boy? Oh, they just that burst ended and they did not take out the Weird Boy. That was extremely, extremely close. That could have been pretty amazing. As is, these Terminators now overextended. If they let the Slugger Boys get in range, that could be the end of these Terminators. As is, they'll probably still lose a model or two. And Yarrick, luckily for Raffa, Yarrick managed to scare off those Slugger Boys, because if they were left uncontested, they probably would have wiped that squad of Terminators. Raffa being a little too brazen there with Terminators that had already burned their teleport, trying to go for more kills, I think. And I mean, certainly at range, the Terminators will be doing really, really nasty things to the Slugger Boys. But once the Slugger Boys get in, it turns the other way around. And a tier 1 squad like Slugger Boys can actually do really, really nasty things to Terminators. In part because these Terminators are more of a ranged unit, and the Sluggers actually do kind of counter them. But it looks like the red team has now gone with the strategy of doubling PhatE, in part because PhatE does have the smaller, weaker army. His Warboss is dead on the field in a position where Fear most likely will not be able to revive him, although PhatE does have resources that he can use to repurchase his Warboss. Raffa needs to be careful. I think sticking with Yarrick is the right idea, although that is, of course, getting Fear to come back here. It's also good for them to fight on this side, since the two VPs are more on this side than they are on the other. And also by getting the blue team to come closer to them, that means that Yarrick's Manticore will be able to basically it has a shorter. It takes less time for the rockets to arrive to their destination the closer the Manticore is to where you're shooting it. So like right here, these rockets are going to come down very, very quickly. Although Yarrick might just kill one of his own generators. Although it's actually really Raffa's generator, according to what it says here. But anyway, we got Terminators right here. We have 2 squads of ranged Terminators, which I think Raffa's he's making fairly good choices in that sense. I feel like some other players playing as the Techmarine, they would probably go for a Venerable Dreadnought, which I think in this case would be really the wrong choice. Because I think would have too much trouble getting to their opponents. So Raffa and Yarrick holding on quite nicely, especially with all the loss that Raffa has suffered. And Raffa's oh, here's another Foot of Gork! Oh my god, that's gonna be terrible. Well, maybe not that bad, but it's still pretty exciting. And that Foot of Gork stuns. But Raffa now needs to get some healing on his Terminators, and I guess one of the disadvantages of going for double Terminators, as powerful as it is, as powerful as those Terminators are, it is going to take a while for them to heal up in base so that they can not. Oh, this is really bad. That's going to be the end of this Terminator squad, I think. Oh, nice save by Yarrick. I think that's a save. Yes, I mean, Yarrick just saved this Terminator right there. That flare pretty much saved those Terminators, or they would have been dead. And that is something that Raffa really needs to be careful about, especially, again, overextending his Terminators and having them get caught by that, the crippling poison from the Termagants. And now Raffa actually has gone for a Venerable Dreadnought. And this is, I think, a risky choice. And It's better now that he also has 2 squads of Terminators instead of just the Venerable Dreadnought, but he's already going to lose it. Wow! So that was actually pretty much the reason why I thought that the Venerable would not be a good choice. And I was going to explain it, but I'm not even sure if I have to. Because that was ridiculous. And now, oh, I see Yarrick, or PhatE, I think, going for, yes, Frenzy. He's going to take him, at least take out 1 Manticore. Wow. Just 1 more hit. That's 1 Manticore down. Very, very nice play from PhatE. He won't get the other one, but, I mean, if he just comes in again, that was beautifully played. I mean, he kind of just used Frenzy so that he would be immune to the suppression, so that he could just walk right in, which is... It's smart play, even though I have a feeling people will not like it when they see it. It is smart play. Oh my god, and now it's Fear coming to... I thought Fear was going to try to finish off the other Manticore. And he could actually do it. He could actually send this Swarm Lord right into base and take out that Manticore. Raffa is calling a GG. Oh, that's really, really bad. I think that just might be a GG, in fact. Terminators go down for Raffa. I think that is a GG. Coming very close, and yeah, that's going to be it. Oof. Crazy game. And this was actually submitted to me by Commissar Yarrick. Thank you for submitting that replay. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good night.